How mental scales actually work. The neurobiology of connection and collapse. Earlier, we discussed how our minds use the metaphor of mental scales to weigh our interactions, including those in our relationships. While a powerful metaphor, it leaves out crucial neurobiological details necessary to understand how love is built and how the brain can abruptly create a defense mechanism like the emotional compartment. To gain a deeper understanding, let's explore the reality behind the mental scale and its seeds. The competing neural networks. The relationship's mental scale is actually represented by two separate, competing neural networks. While not directly connected to each other, these networks are linked to other essential structures in the brain, such as those associated with the safety of children and the stability of the family. Crucially, the love network is intrinsically linked to the parental attachment network, making it resistant to full deletion. We will call the positive network the love network, which is focused on connection and value. We will call the negative network the safety default network, which is focused on survival and defense. The love network, psychological safety. The love network side of the scale represents psychological safety, the fuel for connection. Every time a positive seed is added to this side, it is stored as a collection of interconnected memories, emotional responses, and learned behaviors, a positive neural pathway. Through the principle of long-term potentiation, LTP, the neurons that fire together literally wire together, strengthening the love network, making access to positive feelings automatic and efficient. The safety default network. Psychological debt. Psychological debt. Psychological debt is the accumulated stress, unmet needs, and unresolved conflicts. It is stored as negative seeds in a separate but interconnected neural network. Each negative seed is encoded with an intense emotional charge by the limbic system, specifically the amygdala, fear and threat center, and the hippocampus, memory indexer. Just like the love network, these negative pathways are strengthened through LTP. They create a super-efficient shortcut for negative thinking. The role of confirmation bias and the amygdala. The brain is wired to conserve energy and abhors cognitive dissonance, internal contradiction. Therefore, it relies on the story of the strongest of the two networks to guide perception. Confirmation bias plays out this dominant story, explaining away any incongruencies even though it cannot physically block the input of new seeds. When the safety default network grows stronger, the confirmation bias switches focus. It begins to selectively seek, retrieve, and interpret information to support the narrative that the relationship is the problem. This bias becomes particularly potent for the safety default network because it is fundamentally wired together with the amygdala. This connection causes the relationship to be associated with chronic stress and threat, leading the brain to become hyper-vigilant and exceptionally fast at confirming its negative bias. The creation of the emotional compartment. The logical and rational part of the brain, the executive control network, ECN, will initially attempt to restore balance by sending the inhibitory neurotransmitter GABA, gamma, aminobutyric acid to dampen the negative emotions associated with the safety default network. However, over time, as the safety default network fires more often and becomes more automatic and efficient, the ECN's effort has less effect. This is the point where the network transforms into an emotional compartment. The strongest network wins the battle for the inhibitory system. The safety default network, now integrated with the amygdala, hijacks the GABA neurons. It then uses these inhibitory chemicals in the exact opposite way to actively suppress the positive feelings caused by the love network, and to inhibit the ECN's ability to engage in rational, critical thinking. This hijacking is the creation of the emotional compartment. The reason why the partner suddenly feels emotional numbness, is unable to self-reflect, and why external pressure, logic, pleading, etc., will fail to change their mind. Safety and vulnerability. The core conflict. The mental scale's tipping point is ultimately about psychological safety versus emotional safety. Psychological safety is about stability, predictability, and freedom from fear of consequence. It is rational and structural. This is the foundational state you must establish. Every positive seed is an input of psychological safety that confirms the man is a predictable, non-threatening structure. Emotional safety is about vulnerability, acceptance, and freedom from fear of rejection. It is intimate and requires deep trust. Tragically, problems often turn into permanent negative seeds and accumulate psychological debt because of a lack of emotional safety. The fear of vulnerability causes issues to be brushed aside, allowing misinterpretations and reactive behaviors to become encoded as chronic threats. The urgency of reconciliation, efficiency, pruning, and overhaul. When working on reconciling with a partner, there is urgency in creating cognitive dissonance as soon as possible. This urgency is driven by the brain's ultimate goal, efficiency. The brain's goal when experiencing dissonance is to seek the fastest, most energy-efficient solution to restore coherence. The brain will ultimately choose the path of least psychological resistance. If maintaining the safety default network requires constant high-energy suppression and the love network offers low-energy, stable safety, the brain will choose the latter. The threat of pruning and overhaul. If the partner manages to leave with little to no emotional leakage, grief, regret, the brain may succeed in completing its survival overhaul. Over extended periods, the brain may begin the process of synaptic pruning, irreversibly deleting the neural pathways of the love network that it deems unused and unnecessary. However, it is crucial to remember that the love network is intrinsically linked to the high-value parental attachment network. The safety default network cannot attack the love network without also attacking the primal attachment system to the child, which is highly resistant to pruning. This also explains why some women who leave may appear to disconnect emotionally from their children. The safety default network is an indiscriminate defense built for survival, not nuance. To effectively silence the pain and high demands of the marriage circuits, the inhibitory signal GABA hijack inevitably spills over into the adjacent, interwoven parental attachment circuits, causing temporary emotional coldness or detachment from the children as collateral damage. Why some run back? The loss mechanism. The observation that a wife often breaks her emotional compartment and runs after him when he moves on is based on the sudden, shocking realization of permanent, irreversible loss. This sudden threat instantly dismantles the core safety of her protective narrative. The 4 reasons the compartment endures. Despite the shock of loss, the compartment sometimes remains intact because its primary function is self-protection and energy conservation. The survival overhaul is complete. The partner managed the separation with minimal emotional cost, and the brain views the new independence as the correct, safe narrative. Running back would be a greater psychological cost, admitting failure, than staying single. The new partner fails to create dissonance. The new relationship is perceived as low value, allowing the protective self to easily dismiss the threat and reinforce the narrative that the man is still needy, just with a new person. Chronic emotional burnout is still active. The partner still lacks the emotional and mental capacity to deal with the complexities of reconciliation, and the compartment remains the necessary defense against emotional collapse. Fear of the relationship dynamic, not just the man. The fear lies in the old system, the chaotic dynamic, not the individual. The compartment stays up because it fears the instability of the system more than the loss of the individual. Summary: the mental scale of reconciliation. Relationship conflict should not be seen as a fight between 2 people, but as a battle between 2 competing neural networks in one person's brain, using the metaphor of a mental scale. The 2 competing networks. The love network, focused on connection and value, fueled by positive seeds that build psychological safety, stability, and predictability. The safety default network. The emotional compartment, focused on survival and defense, built from negative seeds, unresolved needs, and stress that accumulate as psychological debt. The mechanism of collapse. The safety default network. The emotional compartment forms during periods of overwhelming stress, like burnout. To survive, it hijacks the brain's inhibitory system, GABA, to actively suppress the positive feelings of the love network, leading to emotional numbness and an inability to use logic. This defense is indiscriminate and can cause collateral damage by temporarily suppressing the parental attachment network as well. The strategic imperative. The core of reconciliation is creating intense cognitive dissonance by showing the partner that the man they left, the debt, no longer exists. The brain is driven by efficiency and will eventually choose the path of least psychological resistance. The goal is to provide consistent psychological safety positive seeds until the love network becomes the stable, low-energy solution, forcing the safety default network to dissolve. Success requires acting quickly, as prolonged separation risks synaptic pruning, irreversible deletion of the love network. The four major factors that keep the compartment up are linked to the partner's fear of the old dynamic, lingering burnout, or a fully completed survival narrative.